this next example, we want to find the inverse of a quadratic function. So our function here is x squared plus 2. If I were to graph that, I can do that quickly because I know it's just a parabola that's has a minimum here at 2, and then it goes up as such, and looks something like this. So we want to see what happens to this graph. So we begin here, rewrite the equation in terms of y, interchange the x and the y, and solve for y. So we get x minus 2, and then we take the square root of that and get y equals. Notice I have a plus or minus value because y can also be negative, and I will still get my x minus 2. Okay? So what results is actually not a function, but that's okay. X minus 2. So what does that look like? Well, I can either choose to graph the equation I have here, or if I want to do it the quick way, I go to my grid, I draw my line, and I reflect it. So the point 0, 2 becomes 2, 0. I get a point here, 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 and here. And there is my inverse. So what can we say about the domain and range of these two? Well, for my quadratic, my domain is every real number, as always, and my range is going to be every real number greater than or equal to 2. For my inverse, my domain is going to be different. My domain is going to be everything above 2, whereas my range in this case is going to be all real numbers, because the relation, the inverse here, goes on infinitely in both directions. You see this arrow keeps going up that way, this keeps going down. Eventually we cover all the y values. In example 2 here, we're given a function, and there's a bit of a typo. The function is g of x. I'll write that in red. And we want to determine the inverse, as well as the domain and range of that function. So let's just quickly graph the original. So it looks like here we have a transformation left by 1 and up 4, and a reflection, as well as a vertical stretch. So maybe beforehand I'll draw in my 45 line. There we go. And now I put in my original function. So back 1, up 4. So I'm just going to draw a rough sketch here. Don't need to be too precise. I don't even have grid lines here. So back 2, up 4. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. So my vertex is going to be there. I know it's going to open down, so it'll look something like this. Okay, I don't care about the roots for now. I just want to know the general behavior of this function. Let's start to determine the inverse. So step number 1, replace the g with a y. And then interchange x and y. Put a y here. And start solving for y. So here I get x minus 4 equals negative 2. I'll expand this out. Actually, no, I won't. You'll see why in a bit. I'll leave that as is because I want to get y by itself. Next, I divide everything by -2. So this cancels out, and I am left with 4 minus x over 2 equals y plus 1 squared over nothing, over 1. Next, I take my square root of both sides, keeping in mind that this will be plus and minus, and I have y plus 1 equals plus minus square root of 4 minus x over 2. And finally, I rewrite this with a 1 on the other side, 4 minus x over 2. There we go. So the domain of our original, well, that's pretty easy. It's all real numbers. And my range is going to be all real numbers that are less than or equal to 2. The domain of my inverse is going to be simple. It's all real numbers, as with the previous quadratic. But now my range, well, let's take a look here. Where is this function going to be? Now, if I wanted to, I could obviously graph the function I have there, but it's always probably easier to just look at the original. So our vertex here was, what was it? -2, 4. So that means I'm going to be at 4, -2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and -1, 2. So roughly over here. So which way is my parabola opening? Well, if you take a look over here and just do some little rearrangement, we'll notice that we have a negative, and we can rewrite this as x minus 4 over 2, which is the same as the square root of -1 over 2 x minus 4. So in this case, you can see that we have a reflection over here in the y-axis, so that means it's going to be opening up the other way, as well as we have some kind of horizontal stretch going on, okay, by a factor of 2. So again, I don't care the details of my graph. What I do know is that it's going to be something like this. Okay, you notice how they meet here at this point. And what does that mean for my range? Well, y is a real number, and y is going to be less than or equal to 4. There we have it.